and civil knowledge throughout the course. Sergeant Forbes exhibited the intellect and personality needed to excel in the civil affairs regiment. Achievements. Sergeant Forbes demonstrated ability to perform duties of a civil affairs NCO in both simulated combat and garrison environments. Sergeant Forbes displayed outstanding leadership when given opportunity to perform the duties of team leader and team sergeant. Potential. Sergeant Forbes has great potential and will be a valuable asset to the civil affairs regiment. Sergeant Forbes has the potential, given time and experience conducting civil affairs operations, to become an excellent caqc. A PFT 2A pass on April 14th and pass height and weight. As you can see, that's me and my military animal.
Hey, what's up guys? Real King Rollo. In the past week, I've seen a few dudes who've had questions about CAAS, and I'm making this video in hopes to help break down what to expect and some info on what to do while training up for CAAS. Okay, to start out, CAAS is a 10-day selection for civil affairs. It's located on Camp McCall, and that's on Fort Bragg. The first and last day are really admin days, so it's more like an 8-day selection. You'll be assessed both physically and mentally. For the physical gates, CAAS shares similar activities that's done in Special Forces Assessment and Selection, SFAS. For example, you'll get to do the Nasty Nick obstacle course. The main difference between CAAS and SFAS is the mental gymnastics that are involved, and that's all I can say about that. When it comes to attrition, what is attrition? Attrition is the amount of people who get washed out in the class. So every school has an attrition rate. The harder the school, the higher the attrition rate. And as far as CAAS goes, I can only speak for my class, but we had initially 78 people. I estimate it was close to probably about 30 NCOs and 48 officers. 17 NCOs were selected and about 21 officers were too. We lost 5 to medical waivers and paperwork, and 2 females got UTIs. We had 1 heat cat, 1 person got their toe crushed and an injury. 4 people voluntarily withdrew, and we also had 4 integrity violations. I'd also guesstimate that there were about 20 people who completed the selection and were non-selects. All right, so let's get on to the prep. We'll talk about PT. What you need to do is you need to go to your RSOF recruiter. Every military installation has an RSOF recruiter. Ask that recruiter if they have a PT program. If they have one, it's typically tailored for the SF recruits. If you do this program, you're going to be overqualified for CAAS, which is a good thing. If not, I suggest getting used to rucking and carrying heavy stuff like a 45-pound ruck, at least, maybe a 45-pound kettlebell or a 5-gallon water jug to simulate a rifle, because you will be rucking and running with a rifle. And I suggest you do this for a couple miles. This will work on your grip strength. Mentally, all I could say to prepare for it mentally is look up LSAT logic puzzles and do some practice ASVAB tests before you go. Socially, so civil affairs is based around socializing with people and finding mutual gain in the best interest of the United States. If you're an introvert and you're not used to doing things like this, like talking to people in public or talking to strangers, getting information from people you may or may not know, then maybe you need to join a Toast Club or think about applying for PsyOps. Those guys are weird. These are some do's and don'ts. Make sure your RSOF recruiter gives you the most recent packing list. And another thing to remember is engineering tape. It's not really tape. All right. Get your uniform and regs with the selection process at your local sew shop. Just go to your sew shop, take your uniforms, and they'll know what to do. Don't be that guy showing up to CAAS with a roll of engineering tape and a sewing kit trying to get all your stuff squared away there, because you're gonna look really out of place, you're gonna look unprepared, and people are gonna take note of that. The next thing is be upfront and honest with your RSOF recruiter about medical and behavioral health history. So you may need a waiver to attend CAAS. It's better that you get turned down or turned away by the RSOF recruiter than to show up to CAAS without that waiver, and then you're screwed and they just kick you out. Then you got to leave your unit. Everybody's going to tell you good luck. Your leadership's probably going to be mad at you because you want to change your MOS and you're going to selection. You're going to leave that morning, and then you're going to come back in the middle of the afternoon, and they're going to be like, "What happened? I thought you went to CAAS." And then you're going to have to tell them. So make sure you're completely honest with your RSOF recruiters. One guy went through the whole selection process, and then right before he got selected, they turned him down because of some of his medical issues. Like, he went through the whole process, and he was killing it too. One guy, during my selection, it was his second time, and he was forced to withdraw the day before the final event. It sucked not only for him, but it also sucked for his team, right? In any events that his team has, they're gonna be that much weaker without him, which is gonna affect the chances of selection for the people on his team. The next one is arrive a day earlier than your report date and get a hotel. If you're the type of person that needs to be settled and needs to have their mind clear before going into something new, you might want to arrive there early. There won't be any barracks or housing provided, but it gives you some extra downtime to get ready and get some sleep, and you'll be able to avoid the jet lag, which a lot of people had. You don't want to go into that jet lag. You want to get there early, go for a light jog. It'll help you get acclimated to the climate. That brings me to my next point. If you're traveling from another climate area, you might want to attend CAAS in a month that matches the climate where you're from. For example, don't be that dude who's stationed in Alaska and decides to come to CAAS in June. You're gonna die. It's super humid at Fort Bragg. It's nasty, it's hot, it's muggy. Don't do that. You will die. For example, Fort Bragg climate, super humid. If you're not acclimated to it, you're going to be a heat cat. You will be a heat cat. And for your information, there are no soft selections in July, just for the specific reason that it's too hot and too muggy. I went to CAAS in June. It was extremely hot, extremely hot. You couldn't hydrate enough. Make sure you pack extra t-shirts, undergarments, and socks. There's not going to be any laundry opportunities until you become a select or a non-select. Before you go, you might want to rearrange your flick so that the front stays zipped and you have the waist part running all the way through the front of the flick. That way you only have to remove it from behind. You just pull it off. This will give you more finer adjustment options on your flick, and it'll fit snug to your body. Failure to do so is going to result in a lot of nasty chafing. So you want to set up your gear in the conditions that it's going to be in selection, and you're going to practice rucking with your gear like that, or running with your gear like that. This next one is like the most important tip. Stop taking supplements 2 to 3 weeks before selection. I'm talking about creatines, your pre-workout, your Cyto, whatever. Creatine requires a larger demand of water to help absorption into the muscles. So the more of that stuff you take and you go with you to selection, you're not going to be able to absorb that water fast enough. You will be doing a lot of physical activity. So stop taking supplements. I'm not talking about your medication, what you get from behavioral health or whatever. Continue to take that, but just be cognizant that when you take those, that requires more water as well. So CAAS is not only physically demanding selection, but it's also a mental one. You need to be generally well balanced in both. However, for CAAS, I think it's better to be smart and slightly weak than to be a dumb and strong soldier, like how they say smart ranger, strong ranger. What they're looking for is the whole soldier concept and whether or not the service member can be trained and trusted in the absence of leadership. For example, it's easier to put someone on a gym program, on a workout program after CAAS to make them physically strong than to teach them problem-solving skills. Of course, you want to come to CAAS in shape. That way, the mental gymnastics that you're doing is not going to take as great of a toll on you. I know before CAAS, I was airborne infantry, so I was in pretty good shape, but I got in even better shape leading up to CAAS. I was in the best shape of my life. When everybody else's feet were breaking down, my feet were good to go. When everybody else was getting weaker, I was just getting stronger because it was more like a part of my normal PT regimen. So I actually came out of CAAS stronger than I went in, which is the opposite of most people. There are probably like 4 people there like that. On the first day, make sure you keep all your stuff that they tell you to keep. You won't have access to any of your stuff that's locked up until the very end of CAAS. I didn't keep my civilian pants with me, and I ended up having to borrow a pair from somebody else. So just make sure you keep a pair of civilian clothes with you, and you put that under your bunk. This is really important. Pass the APFT or the ACFT. You don't have to be a super stud. Just pass the damn thing into standard. Don't do any sissy push-ups. You got to go all the way down. You got to come all the way up. They're going to grade it tough. They're going to grade it tough. It's the only part of selection just to quickly filter out all the couch potatoes, all the people who don't deserve to be there, all the people that aren't taking it seriously. Again, you don't want to be that guy or girl who comes to CAAS and doesn't pass the PT test and it has to go straight back to your unit. You don't want to be that person. You are going to get scuffed up majorly. You can't try to leave the club, fail the club you're going to, and try to come back to the club and think it's going to be okay. All right? That's why you need to be in shape. An important thing to remember while you're in CAAS is do not self-assess. You might get an injury. You might do bad on a KLE. You might mess up a leadership position. Don't self-assess. Don't count yourself out. Shake it off and get back on the horse and go again. You'll be graded on multiple events throughout CAAS, like a lot of events, both mental and physical. You're not going to do great in everything. It's not meant for you to do great in everything. It's meant to see how you react. Your results on each event are not going to be provided to you. Sometimes you won't even know what the standards are. Sometimes you just won't even know what you're doing. You're just along for the ride and they're seeing how you react. Don't let one poor performance affect you in your next evaluation. Just keep trying your best and it'll show that you have perseverance and you're trying to adapt and you really want to be there. Some people perform poorly in a few events and they still pass, so don't give up. Like I thought a few of the events I did poorly in, but then again, you really don't know. Maybe after selection they might talk to you about it and tell you how you could have reacted to something. Maybe not. It just depends. If you mess up or do poorly in something during CAAS, own up to it. Integrity violations are the #1 thing that will get you dropped from selection, and you'll receive an NTR, which is a never to return, which means you cannot ever come back to that selection. An NTR is the absolute worst thing you can get coming from a school. That paperwork is going to come back with you. It's going to follow you around. Here's an example. When they call time on a test, immediately stop writing. Trying to jot down 1 or 2 more answers past the designated time will remove you from selection. If the uniform is 2 1-quart canteens filled with water and you show up with anything less than that for formation, boom, you out the door. They're going to drop you. Do what they tell you to. All right? Some people are going to be trying to get over. You're going to see people on your team trying to get over, trying to take shortcuts. That's going to end up biting them in the end. Because the thing about going to a selection is that you're dealing with a higher caliber of soldier, because you have to actually pass the RSOF PT test just to get there. You have to pass all these medical requirements to even get to selection. You have to have your clearance to even get to selection. So you're dealing with a higher caliber of soldiers all around. If you don't come correct, you're going to stick out like a sore thumb, and your team is not going to like you, and that's going to end up affecting you. When it's your time to lead, lead. It's okay to be open to others and listen to suggestions, but don't hand the reins over to someone else, because you are being evaluated on your leadership skills. For my experienced leaders out there, this also means taking a step back and letting those inexperienced leaders do their job. I saw a lot of people, particularly from the combat arms background, that tried to bring that combat arms attitude to civil affairs, and it's not going to work. Like, they do not want that attitude in special operations because it's just not that kind of party. You're dealing with adults, you're dealing with a higher caliber of soldier from here on out. Not saying that like your infantry soldiers or your airborne infantry aren't high caliber. It's just that those shitbags are already weeded out, so they're not in your formation at all. All right. There might be a couple in selection, but they're gonna, like I said, they're gonna stick out like a sore thumb. Drink the ORS packets they give you the night before, and they taste like shit, but your body really needs it. Like I said, in North Carolina, the weather's no joke, man, and it can change really quick. Also, if you end up doing a long endurance event, have a canteen and put ORS in there to help you prevent cramps. Even if it's not hot as hell, say it's like day 2, 3 and it's cool, drink water, because you're gonna need to be hydrated further on in the course. So don't ever slack off on that. Don't forget about your peers. You will do peer evaluations, and poor teamwork, poor attitudes and behaviors are gonna reflect those. Even if you know somebody's a piece of shit, don't express it publicly. Odds are other people are gonna think they're a piece of shit too, and it's going to reflect in their peers. We had a guy, he was just being difficult. He was falling asleep when he shouldn't have been falling asleep. He was trying to write after, they came in and said, pens down. He was just trying to get over on every little thing. When it wasn't his turn to lead, he was trying to lead. When it was turn to lead, he'd lead, but in a more abrasive manner that they weren't looking for. It's going to reflect in your peer evals. He got peered the lowest, obviously, and he was a non-select. Do I know whether they take the peer evals into account or not? They take it into account, but at the end of the day, it's their final decision. But your peer evals do show a lot about how you work with other people and how you're going to be able to do that abroad in a small team. Don't let your emotions get the best of you. There's going to be times when you're going to get the short end of the stick. There's going to be times when you're frustrated. There's going to be times when you're talking to someone and it's just not going your way. Just make the best of the situation and remember that it's only 10 days. Every time I go to a military school, I tell myself, how long is the school? Oh, it's 2 weeks. I can do anything for 2 weeks. Oh, it's 2 months. I can do anything for 2 months. It's just 2 months. Now, this is only 10 days. You can do anything for 10 days. Don't overeat. CAAS is going to provide you one hot meal per day. It's usually going to be dinner. Everything else is going to be MREs. There's going to be extra food when you go to the chow hall. You can get seconds, you can get thirds. Their chow hall is banging. But don't overfill yourself and then expect to not do PT afterwards. Just get the fuel you need and move on. Know your physical limits. If you get injured early on during selection, it's going to affect you the rest of the selection. That doesn't mean you should try to sit out events. You need to at least give it a try. You're already there. However, don't try to be Superman and create a lasting injury. Like, there's a difference between being legitimately hurt and being sore or in pain. You're gonna be in pain. Once you finish the final event, just kick back and relax. And I mean, kick back and relax. Once you finish the final event, you're gonna bunk down. I just took my socks and shoes off. And now we'll see. Making it all the way to the end of selection is an accomplishment in its own and something that very few people do. You should be proud of yourself for rising up to the challenge, whether you get selected or not. And for those of you who don't get selected, you can always try again. You can always come back. The cadre may or may not provide you with feedback. I know a lot of the guys that were really close to passing, they did get feedback. And some of the people that didn't pass, they came later. So I know that they came back to selection and got selected. So just because you're a non-select the first time doesn't mean you won't get in. If being CA is something you really want, then I encourage you to be honest with yourself when you conduct your own personal AAR. If you have some time before your flight back home, I recommend visiting some of the local joints, like the Saigon Bistro. It's a Vietnamese restaurant. You got Mission Barbecue, and you got the World of Beer, and there's also Patriot Tactical and other military surplus stores that are all on outside the Yadkin Gate. You might want to run up and down Yadkin Gate. They got like all the best gear if you need to stock up on stuff before you go home. I could safely say that on Yadkin Road, you probably have anything to do with military gear, it's there. So check it out. I don't know if the ACFT has been integrated into CAAS yet, so it is possible. So just apply the ACFT to what I said to the APFT. A major thing that's going to help you in CAAS is toughening up your feet. Toughening up your feet when it comes to rucking. A lot of people's feet were breaking down. Like, people were getting blisters. People's skin was coming off the bottom of their feet. Like, what I suggest you do, what I did, was I took my ruck and I took my boots off and I would go down the street. I would walk in the street with my ruck on barefoot, about 4 houses down, and then just come back. Come back to the house, take my ruck off, and then the next day, I go 8 houses down. Then the next day, I do a lap around the neighborhood, and I got all the way up to where I did a mile barefoot, and then once I hit that mile, I stopped doing it. Like a week and a half, 2 weeks before the course started, and my feet were tough. I never got a blister. Nothing. So I hope that helped you out. Good luck going to CAAS, and if these tips helped you out, please leave a like and a comment down below, and be sure to subscribe to my channel. Thanks and good luck.